Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Laura Rogers and this is SharePoint Power Hour. Welcome. This is my show that I do on Wednesdays at 11 Central. My team and I demo just all kinds of things in SharePoint and Office 365. I'm not a programmer. I love building no-code solutions in SharePoint. I do have a background as a server admin, so I'll do some kind of little things here and there now and then in Central Admin, but this show is mostly about things we can do out of the box in SharePoint. We've had like 200 something episodes. I'm not really counting, but there's just so much to SharePoint that, I mean, you could do a show every week and cover something different. And it's a lot of times I don't even prep. I just kind of make it up as I go along. So this is not like the most polished. This isn't like official professional training or anything like that. I do have a training company. When I do those videos, I actually take the time to make them nice and neat and everything works correctly. But these are more ad hoc. We have Slack. We have iwmentor.slack.com, which is where we have our conversation during Power Hour. And you guys all jump in there and say hello. Oh yeah, happy Flag Day, Carlos. You guys say hello and you can ask me questions. That's the fun of doing it live, is you can ask questions while we go, give feedback, kind of get feedback from each other and kind of commiserate sometimes about SharePoint and these technologies. But the last episode was 2 weeks ago. I went into the new approvals in Microsoft Flow, the new approvals action and the whole new approvals interface. And it's kind of like a queue that you have that's in your Flow, on your Flow web page and in your Flow app. And an hour just didn't really give it justice. So this is going to be part 2 of the approvals action. So I'm not going to go, I'm going to kind of try not to cover the exact same stuff that I covered last time. So that was 2 weeks ago. And then last week I went to Disney World for a week with the family, 7 days, 3 kids, yay. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the demo. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay, here is Flow. Anyone can go to flow.microsoft.com and log in. I've got my flows, which is where I'll be creating my flows. So what am I going to create a flow on? Last time I created a flow that was on a SharePoint list, and I demoed that. And I demoed a couple of just basic things on how to use the approval action. I'm going to do a list again. And I'm also going to do a library. This time with the list, I'm going to make it put a couple more levels in there and put more meat to it. So last time it was really just more introductory. So I have this list here called projects, and I'll just show you what the form looks like really quick. So when I go to create a new project, and this demo is not really about the form. It's not about how pretty it looks in SharePoint or what the fields are. It's really about the approval process that we're putting in here. So I have a form that's a project, like information about a project type, a status, some hours. I just basically want to highlight some different types of fields that we have in here. And so that's the list that we'll be based on. And then our flow is going to be an approval every time a new project gets created. And last time I was logged in as me, and I don't have a boss in Active Directory. And the manager field is a really good, important thing to have and to be able to use when you're demoing approvals, because you can make it automatically go get who your manager is and be able to just dynamically look using Active Directory at who that person's manager is when they start a flow. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm logged into my WonderLaura tenant, which is my demo tenant that I have all kinds of fake users in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one and be able to run it as another user, Billy Bob, who has me as a boss, so that this will we'll be able to highlight kind of how that functions. All right, so I actually have already logged in as Billy Bob on another page, so I have that already and up and running. So one way that you can create a flow, you can just go to flow.microsoft.com and do a new flow here, or you can go just to your list or library. It has to be in the modern view, and you have to have the ability to edit in that list, and you will have flow here. And so this is another way that you can create a flow or see your flows. When I click create a flow from within the list, it actually gives me a bunch of cute little templates to pick from. So I don't have to pick one of these templates. None of these templates look like they have that new approval action in them. So I'm going to go ahead and just not use this, and I could go see more templates, or I could click see my flows and it would just really take me over to here. So I'm going to close this little window. And since I want this to be based on just as soon as a new item gets created, I'm just going to, it doesn't have to be something that somebody's manually triggering. I'm just going to create it from here. And I'm going to call it new project approval. And what do I want my trigger to be? This is going to be SharePoint trigger. This is going to be when a new item is created in this project list. And I have to give it the site. So I'll go over here. My site is this sub-site called Power Apps. I do a bunch of demos in this site. And so I paste it like that. And make sure I'm logged in the right tenant. Yeah, okay. Sometimes Flow doesn't like follow me along with whatever tenant I'm it'll still be because I log into so many different tenants all the time. All right, so what list? It's going to be my projects list, and that's it. So new item gets created here. What do? I'll go ahead and do that approval action, and I'll go ahead and pick, I'm just going to type approval here. There are like 100 or more in here, so it's really easy. Easier if you know what you want to just type it, or narrow it down so that you don't have to scroll and scroll and scroll. All right, here's my approval. Title is going to be what do I want the approval to say? And we kind of went all over this already, so I'm just going to kind of do this a little quickly. I want that to be the project name, assigned to. And then this is where you could have it go to your manager. So what we can do is go get the manager and put it in here. I went through all that last time, so I'm not going to do that like right off the bat this time. I'm kind of making sure and mix it up and kind of do different things. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and just write my own test email address in here. Oops, I hate the way it does that. It jumps you back to the beginning of the line every now and then. There we go. Details, take and approve. Item link. I have a link to item. And item link description, I'll just make that be the project name too. Okay. And again, you guys, this is interactive, so let me know if you have any questions as we go. And then the next step is, this is kind of where I didn't get very far last time, is after it gets approved, you want to be able to go to the next person if it gets approved. So if it gets approved, what do you normally do? You guys give me some feedback. If the manager approves it, then who's the next person? Like the VP or something like that. And then if it doesn't get approved, we want it to go ahead and set like a status to say that it is not approved, and send an email to the person to let them know it's not approved. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this real quick, and I want to make sure that I have a status field in here that I can use. So I'm going to go to list settings, and I do have a project status, but I'm going to go ahead and just change this. Instead of quote sent active and complete, I'm just going to change this to single line of text, because we went over this last time that there's an issue with choice fields, and basically you can't write to them from a flow. So I made that so it's not a choice field. And it's also something that we could hide from the form so that the end user doesn't necessarily see it. So that's by going into the content type and just setting it to hidden. So I'm not going to go into that right now. All right, so my flow has been created. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and say, what do I want to happen? I need to have a condition. So I have to add a condition, and I'm going to say here, okay, so here's that's the response. This is the information that you're getting from the person when they do the approval or rejection or whatever they do. So I have my response is equal to, and this thing is in the way, go away. Gotta love that. I had to hit save just so it would go away. Oh, it's doing it again. That's nice. All right, response is equal to, and then I need to see what the word is when they respond, right? I need to know what, if it says approve or approval, remember that? So I need to know what that actual word is going to be so that I can type that word in here. So let's see, it's going to say the approve, and it even helps me out, which is really nice. That way I don't have to test it and run it and figure out. So it says the approval response is going to be approve or reject. So this is not one of those actions where you can customize what the response is. Oh, Chris said approve goes to HR to put on master vacation calendar. That's a good idea. Yeah, we should try that. And yeah, especially if it's like a leave request. Okay, response is equal to approve. Then do what? Then if yes, I'm going to go to the next person or group, and I'll just say I want that to be a group. So I think I'm just going to see what my SharePoint groups are, because like it could be HR, like she said. So I'm just going to say, what are my groups? I've got like managers. Or in this case, it could be project managers, right? So project managers is going to be the next group that gets it. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like when it goes to a SharePoint group, right? So if yes, then I could even add an extra action letting them know that the first person had approved it. But what I do want to do is let that list item know that it moved forward to the next approver. So I will actually have to add an action that will set a value in that list item. So I'll go to SharePoint and I have to do an update item. And then my site address again, I think I still have it in the clipboard. Yep, there we go. List name is the same one. It's going to be, yes, I'm plumber. Okay, go ahead.
I'll walk to your garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was I saying about that? I'm doing a broadcast.
Sorry.
Okay. So it needs to know which one that I am updating. So it already has that item ID because it was created. That's the ID of the item that got created. Project name, this is that annoyance that we talked about before of having to fill this in even though it hasn't changed. And we're not changing any of these other fields except for project status. So this is the one where I want to type to, let's see, project manager approval. Like that. Okay, so that's what it's doing. It's just updating that one field, and then the next step it's going to have is to do another approval action. So I'll go ahead and add an action, and I'm going to do that approval again. You'll have to admit that's comical, right? Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, he's probably like, why is she sitting there in her pajamas doing a broadcast? Okay. Start an approval. This is the second one. I can rename it. I'll just call it PM approval. That just helps me later on when I have everything collapsed in this workflow to be able to quickly see what everything is. Approve project and project name again. And assign to. So this is why it's going to be sketchy when I'm doing this all summer, because you just never know when they're going to show up and what noise they're going to be making. So it doesn't like oh, you know what? It doesn't like project managers because it is a SharePoint group. And why does this workflow not recognize a SharePoint group? Because this workflow is not specific to any site collection. This workflow is just for the whole tenant. So it will recognize people's names when I type them in here. It will most likely recognize group, like actual Active Directory group names, or even probably Office 365 group names when I put them in here, but it's not going to recognize a SharePoint group because it doesn't know it. It doesn't, because SharePoint groups are unique just inside of each site collection. They're not like a global thing. So let me just go look real quick. I'm going to go, I want to put this, assign it to a group, so I'm going to go look at what my groups are. People. And of course it's asking me to sign in again. Okay, yeah, Carolyn's crying laughing. Okay, that's funny. Maintenance department. That's a group. That's a good one. Let me see. Delete that. That'll be interesting to see if it, no, it's not going to recognize an Office 365 group either. Okay, that's fine. Just testing that. An Office 365 group is going to have an email address though. So maybe it would let me type it in there. Users, groups. Maintenance department, maintenance at wonderlaura.onmicrosoft.com. Okay, and then I also have a mail-enabled security group called Contoso All. So I might also try that one. So we'll be able to tell which one's going to be available in here. Yeah, it's interesting because this little thing that wants to have a people picker is not recognizing it, but we'll see if it gives me an error when I try to run it or publish it because of that. Okay. I like causing errors in workflows as I'm demoing them. That's fun. You never know. Let me go ahead and type the name of that other one. It was Contoso All. Let me go ahead and type that and just see if it comes up. Nope. Interesting. Okay, that's fine. All right, details stuff. And item link, same thing, link to item. Item link description. And that's just going to be the project name again. And I could just type it here quickly if I'm looking for it. It's because sometimes when the workflows get really big and you have to scroll and scroll and scroll, that's a pain. Okay, so if it gets approved, it goes to project manager approval. And then if it gets rejected, if no, then what do I want to do? I have to get back here and do add an action. So I'll just do, I'm going to have to update that item to put rejected as its status. So I'll do I'll just type update here and narrow it down even further to SharePoint update list item. Don't get file and item confused, and we'll talk about that in a minute. File is a item in a library, and list item is in a list. All right, here's my, let me get my site again. And okay, list name. I gotta scroll over to get my list name. Projects. ID, which one? I gotta have my dynamic content. Oh, good grief. So let me. This is funny. Oh, okay. When I narrowed down the window, it made everything vertical. Okay, project name. Again, that hasn't changed, but Just go ahead and pick that. Project name. And project status is going to be, I'm just going to type the word rejected. All right, so then the next action is going to be, I can send them an email saying, rejected. So go ahead and add an action, and that's going to be an email. Wow, there are a lot of these in here now. There didn't used to be this many. Just want to send an email. Now, you guys that were asking about approvals and sending approvals that have options other than approve and reject, there's an action here called send email with options. So you could use that instead of this approval action, but it's just not going to give you that whole approvals interface. It's not connected to that approvals thing. The approvals thing only has approve and reject right now. So I'm just going to send an email. Oh, good grief. Let me just type that. Email. There. It's a lot to scroll through. Okay, so I'm going to send an email to who originally created this item, because I'm running this when the item's created. So the one who created it is the one that's trying to get the approval, right? Oh, created, that's the date. Sorry, I got to do created by. It's going to be created by email. Created by email. I love the fact that you have all these other fields you can work with about the created by person, like their picture and stuff like that. The subject is project name rejected. Let me go over here. And then in the body, I can put your project has been rejected by, and put my dynamic content. And that's going to be, I can use this stuff right here. So that's going to be the person, the name, with comments. And then here are the comments that they provided. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so it has been rejected by so-and-so with comments, and then the workflow's over. So let's go ahead, and not sure yet if this assign to over here is going to work, but everything else should work when I create a new project. Yeah, you're right, Carolyn. There are a lot of options for Outlook now, but some of them say like version 2 and stuff like that. So I think that as updates come out, they don't necessarily get rid of the old version, just in case people are still using it. So that's why I would recommend, if you're doing a new workflow, to use whatever that most recent version is of those. Okay, so now I've got my new project approval right here, and when I click on it, I love this the new screen. So let's go ahead and go to my project list and add an item. And I don't have to worry about logging in as another user yet. Might do that later. So this is nice, some nice test content here. And all these aren't even necessarily required. So 800. And I can put a customer if I want to. There we go. All right, so there's my new project. And it's called Wednesday Fun. So it's showing me all my connections here. It's showing me, so I've got an Apple Watch on, and I have the Flow app on my phone. So you guys got to see this, because this is really cool. I can't exactly broadcast my Apple Watch to to share on the screen, but I want to show you if it lets me. It says Flow approval run. Can you see that? Isn't that neat? So when I sent the approval and the approval arrives for me, the person's going to immediately get it on their wrist. And so when they can't approve or reject from their wrist if they have an Apple Watch. That's pretty neat, right? What do y'all think about that? But if you're in the Flow app, it comes in, I have my notifications turned on for Flow. So it comes in my email, but it also comes in the Flow app. And And I kind of already mentioned this last time, but I love the fact that it comes as a notification, and then I can go to the approvals setting right here, and it shows me the list of things, and I can approve or reject from here. You saw the little red and green check boxes and stuff. So I'm going to refresh this page because I know I got the approval request. I just, yeah, see, it says running. So it's running and waiting. Yeah, Fausto thinks that's neat that it's on my watch. So now when the person goes to, they're going to have it in their email, they're going to have it in their Flow app, and they also have this approvals tab that's going to show you approvals that are waiting for you to approve. And here are all a bunch of tests that I've done, but here's the one that I just did. So I click on it and it brings this whole window up. I can go open the item. I like the fact that it opens it in a new window. They're not going to get all lost. So there's I can go look at that real quick. Nice. And then approve or reject. I'll go ahead and approve it. Good. And confirm. And we'll see what that next one does that's set to go to maintenance at, that email address. All right, so where am I going to check that? I'll go to here. And go to people. People's just one way that you can get to be able to see all the Office 365 groups. So it's just one quick way that I'm doing it. And go to maintenance departments, and we'll see if they got the next one. I love the fact that members is the first thing that comes up. Doesn't really make sense. So this is not the thing that I just sent, but let's go look over at flows and see what it does. Because I think that was an actual one of the Office 365 email category approvals that I had sent to it before, because it actually does work sending it to that email address. So let's go ahead and go back to my flows and go to this one, click on it, and see, it failed. So the approvals new stuff doesn't like that the fact that I just typed in an email address that it was an Office 365 email address, but it didn't like it. So let me go double check that there aren't some settings in here that says it can't receive emails or something. Anyone can see group content. Allow outside senders is off. So that could be something. Let's try that one more time because I want to make sure. All right, so I'll go edit this. I don't know why Flow would be considered an outside sender. So we'll see if that makes a difference. And then we're going to try a parallel one. Okay, well, and we'll give that a few minutes because sometimes changes like that have to, propagate down. Okay, so now we're going to go back to flows, and I'll go edit my flow. And it did update the item, though. I love the fact that it gives you all these details about what every single little thing it did. It's kind of raw, but it's all there, right? Okay, go back and edit this. Okay, so what if I want to do a couple of things, have a parallel approval? How is that going to work? So this is how you do a serial approval. You do one approval, then you put a condition, and then you do another approval. Then I like to update the list item so it knows kind of what the status is along the way. You don't have to do that. And then I do another approval, and then you can have a, let me see, cancel. You can have a nested condition in here, at least one. I'm not sure of the quantity of nested conditions that you can have, but you can definitely have at least two. All right. So let's go ahead and put a parallel thing in here. Add a parallel branch. Okay. So I can, when I add a parallel branch, let me scroll down a little bit so you can see this. It's letting me add my actions and conditions and all kinds of really advanced stuff right here in it. So I can go add an action, and look at this did. So now I can have it have an approval that goes to one person and another person at the same time. But let me check something real quick. Does it let you put, it lets you put multiple people in here too. So we're going to see what the difference is when we put multiple people, if it goes to them in a serial manner versus having it parallel and having a completely separate action, right? Because the way it works in the old 2010 out-of-the-box workflows is that the order that you put the people's names in here is the order that it goes to them in a serial manner. So let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really have any settings you can set up. Okay. So that's what I'm going to check before I'm going to close this and not save it. So that's what I'm going to check before I go in and put the parallel thing in there. All right. Okay, so here we go. So Billy is the other one. Billy. There we go. Billy Bob. That's weird. Huh. Okay, whatever. So admin and then Billy Bob. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this thing that was broken. So after admin and Billy Bob get it, then I'm going to have it go to, close that. Dun, dun, dun. Alex. That way it's got a person's name, because clearly it doesn't like groups. So there's Alex, and we'll go ahead and update that. So that way it will at least not break. Okay. Okay, so multiple people and approvals. Now, so again, one of the problems with out-of-the-box SharePoint workflows and with, well, not necessarily the out-of-the-box ones, but more the like the newer SharePoint Designer 2013 task process designer thing, is that you can put multiple people in your task process designer, but it doesn't allow you to put, if it gets rejected, do something else and anything specific in between the people. It just has a bunch of people's names. So we'll just test this real quick and see if it's parallel or serial, just out of the box, putting multiple people's names in there. All right, so the way we run it is we, let's see, Wednesday test 2. Let's see, and save. All right, I'll probably get one of those little pop-ups on my phone. And I've got Billy Bob over here, and I'll look in his email too. And I'll show you that too. All right, so I'm giving it a few minutes to go ahead and run. And we'll go ahead and refresh this page. And got to give it a minute. All right. So remember last time I demoed this, it kind of ran every other time that we added something to the list. So we'll go ahead and let this, give this a minute and make sure it's going to do something, because it kind of varies as far as how long it takes as well. But last time I ran this, is almost immediately as soon as I added the item to the list, I got that little pop-up on my wrist. So, I'm not sure. Dun, dun, dun. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, Flo. So do you guys know what I'm referring to with SharePoint Designer workflows? You guys give me some feedback in here about SharePoint Designer workflows and the fact that The task process designer doesn't, it lets you easily put multiple approvers in there, but it doesn't let you do anything that happens in particular in between the approvers. So the old school 2010 just out of the box workflows that you would just do in the browser, they actually had all these auto emails just built in, and it would actually let you know, at least back in the day, it would let you know in between kind of where it was, and the person who started the workflow would get an email letting you know each time it went to the next approver, if it was rejected and things like that. And you could set up settings to say to stop if it was rejected. But the task process designer, I've got real pet peeves with that in SharePoint Designer because it doesn't do that. So that's why I tend to just go ahead and create each of these approval actions just as different little steps in the workflow, just to make them each be independent, so I can have the flexibility to do something like change the status. So like for example, if I'm going to go ahead and create another one real quick because it's not running, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Project test 3. And okay. So what I was going to say is that even if this works fine, which we haven't, okay, there goes my watch. So every other item I'm adding to the SharePoint list is triggering the flow. So even if this does work fine with it going to both of these people, if it's serial, then it doesn't let me do anything in between them, right? Just like the SharePoint Designer ones. I can't. So what I like about just putting one person at a time is just the method that I use is that then I can say, okay, after the first person does it, go update the list item to say what the next status is, go do the next approval. I could even send an email in between here if I want to. Christian says, can you create flows from a task list? Not a task list. Task lists are still not compatible with the new modern look, so you don't have that ribbon yet. So task lists are all still classic mode, so in your list, the only way to create a flow from the list is right here. So task lists don't have that. So Carlos, I'm going to read, they're drilling now upstairs. See, this is why I might have to cancel Power Hour for the whole summer. Carlos says, so during the approval process, functions need to happen, like a team may need to do an inspection of a site, provide current drawings, a markup or redline of the new design. If this task has not been completed, how do we flag or forward a message to the responsible party to get this done? That makes total sense. So if it hasn't been done yet, then, so by default, it's just waiting for them to respond and do something. So I think, Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that you'd want to assign them something to do, like create a task or send an email, and then if they haven't, no action has been taken after a certain amount of time, then automatically do something else, like send it to someone. Is that what you're saying? Like basically like an escalation? I think that's going to be okay. Good, Stacy. Thank you for the feedback. I think that's going to be a one of those, maybe the error handling. So let me see. Configure run after. Yeah, no. See, that would be running after this. I think Carolyn and Carlos, that to do something advanced like that, like actually have it checked to see if it's been done yet, that would have to be a separate workflow, because you can have a timer. So what you would do is you'd create a new workflow, and you could have the trigger be wait a day or wait an hour or wait a week or whatever it is. And then after that week, then go look at, so go do like a get list item, go look at that list item, and then have to be able to go look at a value to see if it's been done, and then do a condition to say if it has or if it hasn't. So that's like a whole separate workflow you'd have to do that, like to run in conjunction. And that's also what I do like with the current technologies with like information management policies. If you want something to run and wait for something, I did a whole power hour about InfoWise, which that product actually has a built-in setting that you can say based on this date field, like 3 days before it or a week after it or whatever, when that happens, then do something. So that's a really nice sort of trigger that that product has, and a lot of third-party products have, to be able to, what are you doing? To be able to do that. Okay, so let's go look at Billy's email and see if they got an email in parallel. And they did. So they, so I got the email, and I'll show you. This is logged in. Remember, I put those both in. So the answer to the question is that when you put two people's names in here next to each other, that is automatically going to be a parallel workflow. So it's going to both of them. So, but what happens when one person, is it going to wait for both of them to approve it? So not, I don't know necessarily what that sort of, it doesn't have like any extra settings to say, you know, wait for both of them or not, like some other workflows have had. Okay, so let's go look at what happens when one of those two people actually takes an action. So here is logged in as Billy Bob. Approved project test 3. I got to make him sign in. And now it takes him over to Flow, and it takes him over to approvals, and it takes him specifically to that approval being selected. And got all the details. He can go look at it, and then this is where he can approve or reject it. So I'll go ahead and approve. Maybe if I have time, I'll do a reject too. Okay, and then he confirms it. And let's see if it moves on to the next stage of the workflow, or if it's waiting for both people. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and close this workflow and go look at my status here. So it says it's running. And then, so this is what it's waiting for right here. It's got like a little, it's saying how long that it took. So that's really nice that it's showing you how long it took that first person to do the approval. So Billy Bob approved it, and that was all it took. So from there, it has moved on to the next condition, I think. Let me see. So then the next condition, it updated the item already, and then it's doing this. So let's go look at that item's status. I'll refresh this list. And project status. So it's moved on to project manager approval. So that was that second little branch that I created in the workflow. So let's go see, who did I send that to? I had sent that to Alex. So Alex Darrow is the one that is going to log in next and go approve it. So I'm not going to go do all this thing with logging in as all these different users and waste a bunch of time doing that. But that does show you how to do a parallel approval by simply putting two people's names in there in this approval action. That will automatically be parallel. So to do serial, you do have to, I'll go back into edit mode here. To do a serial one, you do have to do a single approval or with a single name, and then move on, and then you know, do another condition and do another name if you want to do things in between each one for serial. All right, and then for parallel approval, what if you don't want it to just go to both people and then one of them completes it and what does the other one see? So what if you do want both people in the parallel approval to have to do something? First of all, let's go look at my approvals status, because Billy Bob went in and approved it, but yeah, it just completely disappears off my radar here. It's not even on my radar. So I'll go ahead and go to mail here and see, I got the approval request, but when I go to it, it's gone. It's not there anymore. So when he approved it, like it just disappeared for me. It's not even there. So all I have is the email. So I don't know if that doesn't seem like it's the most optimal thing that you guys would want in your workflows. So let's go put that parallel step that we were going to do in here, that we started to do and then kind of backtracked a little. Okay, I'll go edit my flow. And Carlos, maybe we'll be able to go in and you know, try some of that other thing that you were asking about. All right, when a new item's created, I'm going to add in the manager just for fun, because I'm going to have Billy Bob go do a project request and see that it automatically goes to me, because that's fun. Manager, just type manager, and it's in this Office 365 users category, actually. Get manager of who? Whose manager do I want to get? I want to get the person that created the item. I want to get their email. So it just says use their UPN or email ID. So I get their manager, and then for that approval, I'm just changing it. So it's not going to be these two people. It's going to be, back up. It's going to be this manager. So assign to, and then see all this is get manager right here. So it's just going to be the email address of the manager. And I'll be able to see all the details of this when I don't have to add a bunch of logging in here like I do in SharePoint Designer, because once the workflow runs, I'll be able to see all these details when I just take a look at it later after it's run. So I'll go ahead and assign it to that manager. At the same time, I'm going to do a little parallel branch here and start an approval and then do another approval. So this one's Billy Bob's going to create it. It's going to go to the manager, which is me. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to put Billy Bob as the other one that it goes to in parallel. So start an approval. I'm just going to put parallel in the title just for fun, just so I can see this visually when we start getting those approvals. This is a good way to just kind of for testing to be able to visually know kind of where we are in here. And so go parallel, and then I'll just put that project name and Billy. There we go. Okay. Item link. Oh, we're going to do document libraries too after this. And description. Project name. Okay. So it starts an approval, and then I'm not going to go through adding a bunch more steps here because I want to be able to move on to a document in a library. Oh, let's see. Carolyn says, Mohammed has a question. Can we start the same flow once again rather than creating a new item expecting it to start? You can, if for this one, its only trigger is when a new item is created. When it errors out, it gives you the ability to resubmit it. But you don't have, like you have with SharePoint Designer, you have the ability to just check the boxes to say manual and on create and on change and all that. And that's really helpful for testing. But this doesn't have that. So what you could do is just, let me go back to the list of all my workflows. I can do save as here. And then new project approval manual. But if it's manual, then you're not going to know off the top of your head like which one to manually run it on. So you're not going to have the ID. So that's not going to be as easy. What you'd have to do to manually run one is you'd still have to create a separate workflow because they each can only have one trigger, and you'd have to go do that, create a flow here, because you have to select an item, and I think I went over this in another Power Hour. You have to select an item when you do this. And when you select an item and click create a flow, that actually gives you a separate list of templates here than it does when you don't have a specific item selected. So when you select an item, this gives me the ability to do this custom action for the selected item, which means that I can run a flow on whatever item I'm picking in the list. And I'd have to go create all those steps all over again in this separate workflow, but I would be able to run it on a particular item in the list. So kind of a pain, but that's the template that we use. So as soon as you save, it goes ahead and puts all this kind of really technical stuff that I don't understand in here. Let's see. I'll just call this workflow manually. So all it's doing right now is just getting the item that the person selected. So then you'd have to add the actions like put the approval in here and stuff like that. But that's once you've created one that's manually triggered, then you still have to, let me close this. Then you still have to go share it with other people. So because whoever you want to be able to manually trigger it has to be in here as an owner. Like not everybody's gonna see that. So it's another step that you have to do for those. So I don't want to get on too much of a tangent though. So I went ahead and added the parallel approval for new projects. I'm gonna go ahead and add an item, and then I'm going to move on to a library and not necessarily wait for this one too long. 4 and put some hours in here, save. Okay. That one may or may not trigger the flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at a library in here. So I have some files, projects. Let me go look at my site contents. Statement of work library, we'll use that. Fausto, my video is still going as far as I know. Like, is YouTube not showing my screen anymore? Oh. I'm just going to keep recording because I think that it will catch up. All right, anyway. Okay, so we got a library here, statement of work library. I want to do an approval on the library. So let's do it a different way. I want to do this thing that I was just mentioning where you can select an item. So instead of on create, which is what we're doing the whole up till now, we'll just do a create a flow that will run, that we can run manually. So we could run one that's triggered on create, that's triggered when something in that list changes, but this one's going to be a manual flow. So let's see, I'm going to go just do a custom one so I can do whatever I want. And again, you have to pick a specific item in that list or library to get these templates that it uses that run on a specific item in the list or library. So I'm going to go ahead and say SOW approval and create it, and then just go back in and edit it. All right, edit flow. Okay, so it's getting the item. This has got a bunch of magic behind the scenes. It's getting that specific item that whatever I click on to be able to trigger it. So then I want to, and it's using get item, which is interesting. Do an action. I'll do approval. Start an approval again. Okay, and then title, approve file, and then put the name of the file. Assign to, I'm just gonna quickly just type my own name in here. And stuff. Item link. That's going to be the link to the document, link to item. That'll be interesting. It says to the file or list item, so that should work. And then for the description, I'm going to put the file name. Now, this is really interesting because this is actually improvement, because in libraries, we have not, up till fairly recently, you didn't have all this metadata about an item in a library, but they're using this get item action here instead of get file, and that is the trick here. So that's kind of the workaround that I was going to mention to you guys, but it looks like I don't even have to do the workaround because they've got it built in now. So now in a library, and you can see how they did this here, is they've got the site address here, and when you do get item, it's just by default, when you just from scratch just add the get item action, assume it's a list. And so when you do the list name drop down, it's only going to give you the lists from that site. But you can just put the GUID like this of your library, or just type the name of your library, even though it's not in the drop down. And that's how you can get that item and be able to have all this metadata. So that's the purpose of the workaround that I'm talking about right now, is that historically in this product, we haven't had metadata, extra metadata about files in a library. We've just had like the file name, like the file ID and the file title, just some basic stuff, and no other metadata like created by or any other columns we added. So this is by pretending that it's a list item and just hard, coding in the name or the ID of the list. That's how I'm getting all this other metadata. So that's pretty huge. That's a huge workaround that's going to be really important. Okay, so that's how I'm starting an approval. I'm going to go ahead and try putting in that maintenance thing again. I don't think it's going to work, because remember I set it to be able to receive email from external email, but the fact that it's not, coming up in the little picker it's not going to let me do that group. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'm doing start an approval, and that's all I'm doing. So I don't even have the action where it's updating the list to let you know if it was approved or anything like that. Do done. I can't wait till they tie this in with the built-in content approval in lists and libraries. That'll be huge. I'll go double check and see if they've done it yet, but I don't think they have. So I'll go ahead and run this manually. So how do you run it manually? You select an item and you choose flow, and my resolution on this screen is really wonky, so that's why usually you would see it up here. It wouldn't be all scrunched together. So this is my statement of work approval flow that I'm running, and it's running as the person that created it, and it's always just going to run as the person that created it. Now let's go in here and look at this list as Billy Bob, because I want to see if Billy Bob can have the ability to run that flow too. So I'll select an item, and see he doesn't see it at all. And what did I say that I have to do to allow him to be able to see it? I have to go into my flow. I've got all these windows now. I'm managing my flows. I have to go into this flow for statement approval, statement of work approval, and I have to share it. And I have to put a group. It could be a group. Let's see if I could put like maintenance. Yeah, see, I can put a whole group of people. I can put like, everybody I want to, and or I can just put an individual, but you have to be in here with it shared for you to be able to, for that person to be able to run the thing. So this is a lot different than our SharePoint designer workflows that just, if you're in the library editing things, you can run a flow. Okay, so I'll have to wrap that up. I'll just go real quick back over here to refresh this as Billy Bob and see that flow and go. Yep, there it is. It takes a second. So he can run statement of work approval. And now I'll go back and see. So he has run it, and now I have run it as well, and I'm getting little notifications on my Apple Watch. So I'm logged in as Billy Bob, and he has not received any requests yet. That's because he's not one of the first approvers, right? I am one of the first approvers. Now I go to approvals, and I scroll down. It's got the older ones up top because they're probably more important because I haven't approved them yet, right? So here's approved file example. So I've gotten both of these now. I got the one that I ran, and I got the one that he ran. I can go ahead and click on this. I can go, so this is the name of my file. It's opening up in Word. That's huge. All right. And I'll go ahead and approve it. And done. Okay. And then this other one, I'll go ahead and reject it. No. And Power Hour is pretty much over. But let's see. We'll go ahead and look at my workflows, my flows. And let's go just look at it here. Okay, so the 1, 2, okay, that's not the same one, sorry. Where is it? It's called Statement of Work Approval. Where did it put it? Oh, it put it in team flows. So as soon as you change something, as soon as you add other people to a flow to share it with them, you have to go to this other tab, team flows. So that always, I always get confused when I first do that and forget where it went. Okay, now I see that it succeeded and it ran on that item I selected. It got the item, it started the approval, and response was reject. So it doesn't actually do anything different if you approve or reject it. So that's why it's going to help to do some conditions in your workflow that happen based on whether they approve or reject it, or else it's just doesn't go anywhere. No one sees it. No one knows that it got rejected. All right, let me flip back over here. All righty, thanks everybody for coming. That was a fun one. It actually went fairly smoothly, except for every other flow randomly not running. But we get to highlight a lot of different things with using multiple people in your approvals and how parallel approvals work, and kind of what, kind of the order of things to do when using the approvals, and some limitations and some nice improvements. So stay tuned next week when I have more hammering and drilling upstairs and may have to cancel Power Hour. Anyway. Thanks all. Joelle might be doing some more Power Hours as well. She started doing that managed metadata, like that first Power Hour, like 3 weeks ago on managed metadata, which is going to be the first in a series. So we'll probably continue on some more with that. And just so many updates have been coming out, especially with Power Apps and Flow lately. It makes my head spin. It's a lot. They've been just adding and improving just so much, just so fast. It's so awesome that I hardly even have time to check out and try out the new stuff just as it comes pouring out. So follow me on Twitter, WonderLaura, and I post about all these updates. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Power Hour. Thanks for coming.